revolution somehow. And love explode and bring the dead to life. A love so bold to bring a revolution somehow. No, I'm lost in your freedom. And this world I'll overcome. My God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion. Let hope arise and make the darkness hide. My faith is dead, I need a resurrection somehow. No, I'm lost in your freedom. And this world I'll overcome. My God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion. He's roaring. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion. He's roaring, he's roaring, he's roaring like a lion.
God's not dead.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Good morning and welcome to the King's Board this Friday, August 18th, 2017, 8th year of Chungi, 6th month, 27th day by the heavenly calendar. I'm your host, Young Deshaun Moon, the second king of Cheongguk. Let's first go to Tim, the ancient elder, for our AccuWeather forecast. Tim.
Good morning. It's a wet and muggy morning this morning at the Cheongguk.
It's wet and muggy.
Yes, it's 69 degrees, which is quite a bit warmer than it usually is this time of morning, recently anyway. And we're going to probably have a cloud cover most of the day, maybe all day, and it'll be raining off and on, perhaps some thunderstorms. But the sun will be back tomorrow, and it'll be a nice weekend. And Monday, when we're having the eclipse, it'll be mostly sunny. So if we, with the proper eclipse glasses, should be able to see that eclipse. Here it'll be about 76%. If you want to see the total eclipse, you have to go down to Charlottesville or someplace like that.
There you go. So we have a muggy and wet morning. Oh, goodness. Well, you know, there's always a beauty in the rain. The rain does add to the beauty of the rocks and the natural environment. The trees' bark is more beautiful in the rain.
Yes.
Also, the leaves and the roots get hydrated. So everybody's happy today. Let's put it that way.
We're all happy.
Alrighty, folks, we are in 1 Corinthians and chapter 3 in the section Avoid Worldly Wisdom. There you go. And we are in verse 18. Let no one deceive himself. If anyone among you seems to be wise in this age, let him become a fool, that he may become wise. The wisdom of this world is foolishness with God. For it is written, He catches the wise in their own craftiness. And again, the Lord knows the thoughts of the wise, that they are futile. Therefore let no one boast in men, for all things are yours, whether Paul or Apollos or Cephas, or the world or life or death, or things present or things to come, all are yours. And you are Christ's, and Christ is God's. Amen and adieu. This scripture, of course, is cautioning us against worldly wisdom being the times of the age. What seems to be the direction of where human destiny is flowing. What seems to be the direction in which we all should be following. We could even call it the mainstream media, or the mainstream trendings. How radical are those who are in the mainstream, quote, mainstream, who, like lemmings who jump off a cliff, attack, mock, and persecute those who seek the truth. Whether it be seeking Jesus, the way, the truth, and the life, or whether it be just knowing the truth of 9/11. One is mocked, hated, scorned, called a conspiracy theorist, called somebody who is paranoid, called somebody who is this or that, all for the sake of, because of the fact that one is not following the, quote, wise anchors of CNN. A quote, wise people on the news who give you misinformation. The wise people like Oprah and the multiculturalists who are really relativist. The times of the day are always leaning towards Satanism. Now they might not be explicit Satanism, where they're actually worshiping Lucifer or Baphomet, whatever you name it. But they are indirect forms of Satanism and or satanic civilization, which breeds the culture of making it okay to be a hardcore Satanist. I'm not just talking about some rebellious idiot, bum who's been brainwashed by the Marxist professors and want to be cool and different and wants to rebel against their parents. And so dyes their hair green and wears black rimmed glasses and, wears skulls on their face, whatever, handkerchiefs. in a mockery of their parents or something like that. I'm talking about hardcore Satanists. Satanists that look very nice, but are hiding. Satanists that are part of the elite structure, politicians, huge conglomerates look prim and proper, look, surround themselves with all the accoutrements, do not come across as seniors. Wear very clean-cut political suits and are out there fundraising for charities and behind the scenes, like Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, who's a known rapist, who's been on Pedophile Island with Jeff Epstein, a convicted pedophile. Hillary Clinton being there 6 times, Bill Clinton being there 20 plus times. Jimmy Savile, who was, or Heath, Sir Edward Heath, very prim and proper in society's eyes. Very politically correct. Very polite politically. Behind the scenes, kidnapping, sex trafficking, murdering, raping, and offering children to Satan. You're talking about hardcore Satanists. Not the little Antifa punks who think they're badass by wearing a black hood and saying that they kill their babies, laughing at Christians, mocking them. You're talking about the hardcore Satanists who look like just clean and prim and proper like Obama. Look clean and prim and proper like Clinton. In the 80s, the Washington Times broke the story of the Bushes running the pedophile rings in Washington, D.C. You're talking about real clean-cut, ostensibly claiming that they're Christians. Really, they're part of Skull and Bones and that network of inter-blackmailing. In the end, satanic structure and hierarchy is kept by blackmail. Skull and Bones at Yale, known for its homosexual rituals, getting you to do some kind of homosexual act, getting you on film with it, and then keeping you blackmailed. So if you want to combine with the elite structure to make money in the future, you must do their bidding, because they always got that ace in the sleeve. Oh, you don't want to do that bidding? Oh, you don't want to be PC? You don't want to push this narrative? Oh, you don't want to do this? You don't want to push that project? You don't want to do that? Okay. Remember this little video that we have of you? We're sending you a copy just to remind you. Well, we've got plenty of these copies. We wouldn't want to see you end up on the cover of Time magazine with this, or Newsweek. We wanted to see you reported on CNN. You know how devastating that would be to your wife and children. You see, in the end, the black ops and the black shadow cultists work with blackmail. And what is the key of blackmail? It is sex. Get somebody on video having sex with in a homosexual sex or whatever, deviant forms of sex. Get them having sex with an underage girl who's barely 18, 3 days before her 18-year-old birthday. Get some Republican conservative banging some boy. Then you got the dirt on them. Now they're your slave. You see? And this is how satanic organizations operate. Skull and Bones being famous for forcing all their new initiates to do not only mock killings and devil worship, but getting blasted with alcohol, inviting the sorority girls' parties over, getting you caught with orgies and bisexual and homosexuals jumping on you. By the time you're too sober to wake up, you're like, holy crap, what happened? There's a video that's sent to your desk as you become bigger and bigger politically. Oh, by the way, we wouldn't want you to forget but how much fun you had at Yale. How much fun you had in your fraternity, now would we? You see? The spider web of the super elites, the satanic political Satanists, is intertwined by the glue of deviant and fallen sex, which is then used and weaponized to control, to destroy, to get what they want. People of God must be wise in God and not wise to these kind of fools. We should not be seeking Bezos and Buffett, some of the biggest banker bailout and corporate bailout recipients. Warren Buffett is. These people don't have wisdom. All they have is cheating and collusion. Allying with Satanism and allying, selling their soul so as to get temporary riches. We, as the scripture says, all are yours, things present and things to come. And you are Christ's, and Christ is God's. It is in Christ that we find the way, the truth, and life. The true wisdom will guide us beyond temporary satisfaction, temporary success, worldly affairs. Allow us to transcend all of that. Be moral, have integrity, have character, honesty, have a hard work ethic, and connect with real people who are based on truth. The full spectrum of reality that allows us in the end to realize that we are God's children. We'll be right back after a short break. Stay with us on the King's Report.
I'm down here at the range today. I just learned a new technique from the father of the .44 Magnum, Elmer Keith, which is called shooting out of the notch, which allows you to make really long distance shots and still have an extremely precise sight picture. So I brought my CW9 car down, and with this little gun, we're gonna shoot this little munchkin at 200 yards up in the hills, applying this technique, and hopefully we'll make the shot. To apply this technique, instead of using the blade of the front sight lined up with the top of the rear sight, I'm going to take the dot of the front sight and raise it up so that it's out of the notch, but I'm still going to keep the front sight on my target. Bringing that front sight up like that is going to compensate for the bullet drop over that excessively long distance with just this little gun. So if applied right, we should be making contact. Let's see how it goes. Oh, that's perfect. perfect. I saw this shot, so I'm a little bit out of breath because you gotta run to make sure that that is what I thought it was, and it was. So while making this shot, from that distance with these white dot sights, it literally would cover the entire target. You couldn't see what you were shooting. So using the Elmer Keith technique, you were able to raise it out of the back notch, I can't breathe, out of the back notch, allowing you to keep your accuracy, aim, and also still see the target, which is key because it was a hard shot, not gonna lie. But yeah, it went great, and Elmer knows what he's talking about. And for such a small gun to be able to take that hit, I'm very impressed with this. All right, guys, be sure to like and share, and I'll see you out on the range.
That was awesome. Hey, can I try that one? Yeah, let's see with the 380. Does everybody have eyes and ears?
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
And we are back. Welcome back to the King's Report this Friday, August 18th, 2017. I'm your host, Hyungji Sean Moon, the second king of Cheongguk. Now let's go to our headline news of the day. There's so much news every day, many times we can't cover all the news. So let's at least go through the headlines so people know generally what is going on. I think generally that is helpful to do. What do you think, Tim?
I think so, yes.
Okay.
Give an overview.
And then we'll go through some of the breakdowns of these occurrences. Evil strikes again. Barcelona bastards, dozens mowed down on Las Ramblas. Again, Islamic terrorism strikes again. On the left column of drudgereport.com, Roger Stone, no tears over Bannon. Markets jolted by chaos, back to school, teacher shoots self in classroom. CIA torture psychologist avoid trial with secret settlement. City to outlaw distracted walking, fines for texting during strolls. Buchanan, America divided deeply. ACLU tensions grow over defending white supremacist speech. Maryland sex robot. Weather Channel founder, I'm a climate denier, so put me to death. Study, eat fruit and vegetables to help ward off blood cancer. In the middle column, Trump attacks could leave him friendless if impeachment comes. Gore says president should resign. Michael Moore says he will get us all killed. These pathetic idiots. Confederate monuments staying up in Gettysburg. Lincoln bust torched in Chicago. Vandals deface Robert E. Lee at Duke. Activists float criminalization of imagery. Vice tweets, blow up Mount Rushmore. You people are terrorists. They are really terrorists. Nazi spray painted on New Hampshire Republican headquarters. Swastikas on Miami Palms. Yale censors hostile historic artwork. Merkel called a traitor, defends refugee stance in rowdy East Germany. Fall preview, Stephen King, It. Eyes record opening. Lawsuit, Poland Springs, colossal fraud selling groundwater. Purified from sites near waste dumps. Wow. Memories of fear could be permanently erased. Boom. Hampton's most expensive home to ask $175 million. Millennials finance everything bed sheets to concert tickets. U.S.-South Korea war games start Monday as Pyongyang warns of catastrophe. Californians want out of USA, new push for independence. Feds hide key details of Cuba diplomat attacks. Number ill greater than acknowledged. Venezuela's Maduro regime steps up crackdown on dissidents. Deportations decline as fewer seek illegal entry. Canada asylum seekers up fourfold. Mueller may not be savior anti-Trump hoping for. Delta Jet clips 2 planes, truck in 24 hours at JFK. Storm watch, tropics heating up, and PETA pays family $50,000 after euthanizing pet Chihuahua. And there you go, folks. Reported by Reuters. Spain hunts van driver who mowed down Barcelona crowd, killing 13 people. It is the latest in a string of vehicle attacks across Europe. Islamic State claims responsibility. Las Ramblas Avenue is magnet for tourists. Locals rush to donate blood. In Barcelona on August 18th, a manhunt was underway for the driver of a van that mowed through a crowd of tourists in Barcelona's most famous avenue on Thursday, killing at least 13 people in an attack that was claimed by the Islamic State. Authorities said the death toll could rise with more than 100 people injured, some seriously, 13 dead. Police say they arrested 2 men, a Moroccan and a man from Spain's North African enclave of Melilla, though neither was a driver. Witnesses said the driver fled on foot. It was still not clear how many attackers had been involved. Hours beforehand, one person was killed in an explosion in a house in a town southwest of Barcelona, an incident linked to the attack, police added. So it's an explosive, it's a terrorist explosive that was used. Residents of the house were preparing explosives, a police source says, as the manhunt continued into the night. Police said several attackers were killed in a shootout during an operation against what they called a possible terror attack in Cambrils, another town south of Barcelona. Early in Barcelona, witnesses said the white van zigzagged at high speeds down Las Ramblas, a busy avenue thronged with tourists ramming pedestrians and cyclists, some sent hurling through the air and leaving bodies strewn in its wake. Islamic State Amaq news agency, the perpetrators of Barcelona are soldiers of the Islamic State, and carried out the operation in response to calls for targeting coalition states, a reference to a U.S.-led coalition against a Sunni militant group. Spain has several hundred soldiers in Iraq providing training to local forces in the fight against Islamic State, but they are not involved in ground operations. The Islamic State claim could not immediately be verified. And the involvement of Islamic militants is, if the involvement of Islamic militants is confirmed, it will be the latest in a string of attacks in the past 13 months, in which they have used vehicles to bring carnage to the streets of European cities. That modus operandi, crude, deadly, and very hard to prevent, has killed well over 100 people in Nice, Berlin, London, and Stockholm. British tourist Keith Willing, who arrived in Barcelona on Wednesday with his wife and 9-year-old daughter, said they saw the van drive past them down the avenue and took refuge in a restaurant when panic broke out and the crowd started running. People were shouting. We heard a big bang and someone cried that it was a gunshot. Me and my family ran to the restaurant along with 40 other people. At first, people were going crazy in there. Lots of people crying, including a little girl around 3 years old. It was the deadliest attack in Spain since March 2004, where Islamic militants placed bombs on commuter trains in Madrid, killing 191 people and wounding more than 1,800 people. Spanish Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy announced 3 days of official mourning for what he called a jihadist attack. Okay, at least they're calling it a jihadist attack. The Spanish royal household said on Twitter they are murderers, nothing more than criminals who are not going to terrorize us. All Spain is Barcelona. U.S. President Trump said the United States condemns the terror attack in Barcelona, Spain, and will do whatever is necessary to help. You gotta be tough and strong. We love you. Bodies on the ground. Police said that 2 men detained on Thursday had been arrested in 2 towns, Ripoll and Alcanar, both in the region of Catalonia, of which Barcelona is the capital. The explosion was also in the town of Alcanar in the early hours of Thursday. 1 person died and another was injured in that incident, police say. Police say they also shot dead on Thursday a man who had driven a car into a police checkpoint in Barcelona, though they had no evidence he was connected with the van attack. Mobile phone footage shows several bodies strewn along the Ramblas, some motionless. Paramedics and bystanders bent over them, treating them and trying to comfort those still conscious. Around them, the boulevard was deserted, covered in rubbish and abandoned objects, including hats, flip-flops, bags, and pram. Belgium's foreign minister said a Belgian was among the dead. Regional head Carles Puigdemont said people have been flocking to hospitals in Barcelona to give blood. Susan Elvira Carolina, 33, who works at a shop in Las Ramblas, had just entered her building when the van struck. We had a window and you could see the bodies lying from there. You could see how people were run over. We were shutting down the blinds, but people kept coming in and we had to keep it open so they could enter the shop. The incident took place at the height of the tourist season in Barcelona, which is one of Europe's top travel destinations with at least 11 million visitors a year. French President Macron, whose nation has suffered some of Europe's deadliest militant attacks in recent years, tweeted all my thoughts and France's solidarity to the victims of the tragic attacks in Barcelona. A Vatican spokesman said Pope Francis was praying for the victims and wanted to express his closeness to all Spanish people, especially the victims and their families. Well, it doesn't help that all you stupid elites let the Islamist terrorists pour in.
Yes. And Merkel is calling for more.
She's calling for more again. More, more, more. How many dead bodies needs be to have the people wake up and realize our politicians don't give a crap about them? Authorities in Vic, a small town outside Barcelona, said a van had been found there in connection with the attack. Spanish media had earlier reported that a second van had been hired as a gateway vehicle. Barcelona is the capital of the wealthy northeastern region of Catalonia, which plans to hold a popular vote on October 1st on whether it should secede from Spain. The central government says the vote cannot go ahead because it is unconstitutional. Before Thursday's attack, government data showed the police had arrested 11 suspected jihadists in the Barcelona area so far this year, more than anywhere else in Spain. And there you go. Now even the mainstream news is forced to admit that there is a migrant crisis, or that there is a jihadi crisis in Europe at least, and forced to admit that there is a problem. We'll be right back after this short break. Stay with us on the King's Report.
Man, I'm not gonna let these material things get in my way, y'all. I'm trying to get somewhere. I'm trying to get somewhere that's real and pure and true and eternal. Toby, can you go with your boy? Let's go!
Father God, I am clay in your hands. Help me to stay that way through all life's demands, cause they shit.
Oh, 658. $614. 646. Time 471.
Hello folks, I'm Justin Moon, the president of Carr Firearms Group, and today I've got the PM40 with True Glow night sights, and look at that, Magna porting. Look at that porting on that. This is our standard PM40 with the day sights, but now this model with the Magna porting and the True Glow night sights. What a difference. The 40 caliber PMs have a reputation for being quite a bit of a kicker. They do kick a lot. And so we put the Magna porting on these PM40s, and boy, what a difference does that make. It really makes this PM40 shoot a lot softer, reduces the muzzle flip, the recoil comes straight back into you, and becomes a very manageable pistol.
And we are back. Welcome back to the King's Report this Friday, August 18th, 2017. I'm your host, Hyung Sean Moon, the second king of Chunigok, here with Tim Elder. Let's now go to Tim for a important report. Tim.
Okay. The king often talks about Satanism and has really informed us a lot about the reality of Satanism in the political, especially in the political and among the elites. But it's not often that the mainstream media will confirm that. But we have a confirmation this morning, murder of a pregnant woman linked to Satanism. They put a question mark though. In Argentina, a satanic cult is believed to be responsible for the murder of a pregnant Argentinian woman who was discovered stabbed multiple times and burned in a fire so hot only her necklace helped authorities identify her. The body of Fernanda Pereira, 26, who was 6 months pregnant, was found July 20th at the 6-kilometer mark on Route 6 in Argentina, near the town of Rincon de los Sosas. Authorities said due to the significance of the number 6, they believe Pereira was the victim of a Satanist ritual. The three sixes chosen, kilometer 6 on Route 6, and Pereira being 6 months pregnant, were believed to be chosen to represent the number 666, found in the Book of Revelation and often used to refer to the devil. Investigators believe the perpetrator stabbed Pereira 5 times and then used a large amount of gasoline to burn her body. The killers then transported the remains in a remote Kangu van, Argentina newspaper Clarín reported. The body was so badly burned that only a necklace Pereira was wearing allowed authorities to identify her. The van, when recovered, had been cleaned, but traces of the victim's blood and hair remained, prosecutor Augustin Garcia and Fabian Flores said. Pereira's ex-boyfriend, Luciano Hernandez, and 2 friends have been arrested in connection with the murder. They have been placed in preventive prison for 6 months, the Daily Mail reported. The 3 suspects were linked to drug trafficking and are believed to practice Satanism and unidentified African religions, Clarín reported. Authorities said they found a sheep and a satanic music and images featuring women in flames at one of the suspects' house. The sheep is believed to have been used in rituals. Theories on the motive behind Pereira's murder range from Castillo killing her because she got pregnant by another man, or the group murdering Pereira to warn citizens against interfering with drug trafficking gangs, Clarín reported. In my opinion, this is not a domestic violence case. This is a crime linked with drug trafficking, lawyer Marcelo Henriksen Valesco said. According to reports, Pereira's death was only the final incident in a brutal string of episodes the woman endured. Her former boyfriend, who is the father of one of her 3 children, allegedly beat her in 2014 while she was taking money from a cash machine he was arrested but later released. 2 years later, in 2016, she witnessed the death of teenager Francisco Orellano at the hands of a drug trafficker. After that incident, she received several death threats. So this was, elites are much better at hiding the remains of their rituals. But this is maybe if it's a drug trafficking, they weren't quite as sophisticated in getting rid of the body, and so they were able to identify her with the necklace that she was wearing, and also they got the van as well. Yesterday, Steve Bannon, we had a report about Steve Bannon giving an interview to a liberal magazine, and in that interview he said that there are no military solutions in the Korean conflict for the Korean Peninsula, because the number of deaths will be just too high. Well, Secretary of State Tillerson and Defense Secretary Mattis have come out and said, I don't think so. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson and Defense Secretary Jim Mattis on Thursday rebuffed the White House Chief Strategist Steve Bannon's claim to a liberal magazine that there is, quote, that, quote, there's no military solution for North Korea's nuclear threats. Bannon unloaded in an interview published late Wednesday by the American Prospect. He hammered the importance of what he called the economic war with China, dubbing the tensions with Pyongyang a sideshow and rejecting this notion there's a military solution. I asked Thursday about these comments. Tillerson and Mattis pushed back. We have been quite clear as to what the policy and the posture toward North Korea is, Tillerson said. We are prepared. We're prepared militarily. We're prepared with our allies to respond if that is necessary. While saying he did not want to comment specifically on Bannon's interview, Tillerson said the threat from Pyongyang had to be backed by a strong military consequence if North Korea chooses wrongly. He noted that a military option is not the preferred course, and allies continue to work to bring pressure on North Korea through other means. Mattis also said there would be strong military consequences for the North Korean regime, echoing past statements that an attack on Guam or any other U.S. land would mean war. Tillerson and Mattis spoke after meeting with their Japanese counterparts at the State Department. Earlier this week, Kim Jong-un seemed to back down on threats of an attack following days of escalating warnings between Pyongyang and Washington. In his American Prospect interview, Bannon suggested the real conflict, an economic one, is with China. There's no military solution to North Korean nuclear threats. Forget it, the magazine quoted him as saying. Until somebody solves the part of the equation that shows me that 10 million people in Seoul don't die in the first 30 minutes from conventional weapons, I don't know what you're talking about. There's no military solution here. They got us. Well, Bannon says 10 million in the first 30 minutes. He's exaggerating a little bit, but I have seen a figure that says that 8 million people would die. That would be both in South Korea and North Korea, and also in Japan and the United States, assuming that North Korea does get a missile off to the United States and is able to hit a populated area in the United States and perhaps in Japan. So it's true that the consequences of war on the Korean Peninsula would be devastating. But I think Trump kind of saved a lot of lives with his warnings, because he was instead of sending nuclear missiles, he was sending verbal missiles, and I think those verbal missiles had the desired effect. And Kim Jong-un, that's why Kim Jong-un backed down. Because, like someone was saying, he was speaking a language that Kim Jong-un could understand, and the North Korean leadership could understand, and perhaps China could understand. Anyway, someone got to Kim Jong-un and said, "Hey, listen, you got to cool it, because this guy Trump, he's crazy enough. He's actually going to attack. Don't think he's like Obama, And I think they got to Kim Jong-un or the military, and decided to pull back a bit. And so now North Korea's most recent position is that they're going to wait and see what the Americans do, the American imperialists do, before they actually decide to launch. So right now we're in a kind of a cooling down period on the Korean Peninsula, but Bannon's statement does not help. We have to keep the pressure up. We cannot be saying that, there's no military solution. There is, and they always need to know that if something happens, then they're going to be annihilated. There's an interesting report on Breitbart that a bit of a mysterious report saying that Representative Rohrabacher met with Julian Assange, who of course runs WikiLeaks, and received some kind of, quote, earth-shattering, unquote, info. We don't know what that is yet, but Rohrabacher says that he's going to report it to Trump first before he shares it with anybody else. Republican California Representative Dana Rohrabacher met with WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange at the Ecuadorian embassy in London this week. According to Rohrabacher, Assange, quote, reaffirmed his aggressive denial that the Russians had anything to do with the hacking of the DNC, that's the Democratic National Committee, during the election, unquote, in the meeting, adding, quote, he has given us a lot of information. He said there's more to come. We don't have the entire picture yet, unquote. Rohrabacher further claimed that the information he received would have, quote, an earth-shattering political impact, unquote. Quote, it wouldn't be so important if Democrats hadn't focused so inordinately on the Russians. Democrats are creating a total upheaval over this, he proclaimed. I have some information to give the president before I give information to anyone else, unquote. The meeting was reportedly set up by conservative journalist Charles C. Johnson, who claimed that Rohrabacher would have the who would be the envoy in charge of bringing back a deal to the Trump White House. Johnson's presence was confirmed by a spokesman for Rohrabacher. So it sounds like the Democrats are about to get caught in their own trap, if what Rohrabacher says is true. Of course, politicians often tend to inflate the importance of information that they have. Later turns out to be not quite as earth-shattering as they initially try to tell us. But we'll have to wait and see what he reveals, or whether it will be revealed. But I guess he's going to tell the president first. The king mentioned this headline about Robert Mueller may not be the savior that the anti-Trump internet is hoping for. And this, interestingly, is on a liberal site. It's the NPR, National Public Radio. So let's take a look at how the liberals are perhaps getting worried that maybe Robert Mueller, the special prosecutor, may not be able to bring down President Trump. Let's see what's going on here. A lot of people are counting on special counsel Robert Mueller. Ana Navarro, a Republican and frequent critic of Trump on cable news outlets, besieged him on Twitter to hurry the hell up and get to the bottom of any connections between Trump campaign and the Russians. The satirical website, The Onion, said he's gorging on chicken nuggets to get into the mind of President Trump, and T-shirts bearing the logo, "It's Mueller time," are on sale at Amazon and Etsy. But the online community that's fervently depending on the 73-year-old former FBI director to shake up the Trump presidency may be in for a share of disappointment. The special counsel and his team of 16 lawyers are working under a fairly broad mandate from the Justice Department. They're tasked to uncover any links and/or coordination between the Trump campaign and Russia, and to examine any other matters that might arise because of that investigation. But Bob Mueller understands, and I understand, the public scope of the investigation, and so it's not a fishing expedition, Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein told Fox News Sunday earlier this month. 3 months into the job, however, it's not clear what, if anything, investigators may uncover about the president, who has repeatedly denied any improper contacts with people in Russia and has called the special counsel probe a witch hunt. They're investigating something that never happened, Trump told reporters last week. There was no collusion between us and Russia. In fact, the opposite. Russia spent a lot of money on fighting me. Moreover, even if authorities uncover damaging information about Trump or anyone else in the White House, there are serious questions about whether that material will ever be made public, short of an indictment or impeachment. Regulations governing the special counsel say that at the conclusion of his work, he, quote, shall provide the Attorney General with a confidential report explaining the prosecution or declination decisions. Then it's up to the Attorney General to determine whether releasing some information would be in the public interest. Attorney General Jeff Sessions has recused himself from the Russia investigation because of his association with the Trump campaign. Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein is overseeing the investigation. So the Robert Mueller, the left's messiah, may fizzle out. and the NPR is the very liberal website is very worried about that.
Fizzle, fizzle, sizzle on a grizzle.
Yes.
Oh, and the leftist lunatics keep trying to get rid of President Trump. We'll be right back after the short break. Stay with us.
Hi, welcome to Tommy Gun Warehouse. We have a short video for you this afternoon. We want to show you how to work the action on a P380. This is our very small pocket 380 that it has a very strong spring, to work the slide. And this is because it's a very small gun, and we need to have that extra spring tension to actually make the gun work properly. So today I want to show you how to properly work the action. Ladies sometimes find it very difficult, not to mention some men find it difficult to work the slide. Okay, so I just wanted to show you how to hand a firearm to someone properly. The ejection port should be up, the slide is back, and nothing in the magazine well. Then you take this and you hand it to somebody in this manner. They should then verify that it is empty and nothing in the magazine well. And now what I want to show you is how to work the action on this P380. It's sometimes difficult for men and many times difficult for women, but if you know how, it's not that difficult. So Di is going to start out by facing at a 45-degree angle downrange. The gun is going to be, the axis of the barrel is going to be the same axis as her forearm. She's going to keep it closer to her chest, and then reaching over the top with her weak hand, she's going to make sure that this ejection port is clear, that her hand isn't in the way, because you don't want to have an accidental detonation of a primer and injure your hand. So using the upper body strength, you're going to, just work it together, push and pull at the same time, and lock it back. And it's just that simple. You might not get it the first time, but all it takes is a little practice and learning how to use your muscles, and you'll do just fine. Di had started this just a short time ago, and after the third or fourth attempt, she was doing it perfectly. So thanks for listening. Come down and see us at Tommy Gun Warehouse, and we'll show you this P380. Yes, sir.
And we are back. Welcome back to the Kingsport this Friday, August 18, 2017. I'm your host, Young Sean Moon, second king of Cheongguk. And the Charlotte Observer reports that U.S.-South Korea war games start Monday as Pyongyang warns of catastrophe. Are tensions cooling in the Korean Peninsula? The United States and South Korea will find out Monday when the two allies are scheduled to start joint military exercises that are known to anger North Korea, sometimes triggering a show of force. This year's war games come at a particularly delicate moment. There have been exchanges of war rhetoric between President Trump and North Korea's Kim Jong-un. Trump's chief strategist, Steve Bannon, has further complicated the situation by stating in an interview there's no military option in North Korea while floating a possible deal with Pyongyang that would leave Seoul hanging. Amid all this back and forth, the U.S. and South Korean military will simulate warfare with North Korea from August 21st to 31st. Well aware that North Korea could respond with another missile test. Over the course of the next 2 weeks, I expect tensions to escalate, said Scott A. Snyder, a Korea specialist with the Council on Foreign Relations, who previously was the Asia Foundation's representative in Seoul. There it is. There's the CFR. There's the CFR, the globalist think tank, who has openly stated they want to get rid of American sovereignty and all type of Western civilization's sovereignty. They want to bring in a world government. They would love, look at that, I expect tensions to escalate. He would love to have tensions to escalate and then lead to warfare. Because that would be the perfect trope to say Trump is a warmonger, Trump is a nuclear war, he is the World War III progenitor. Trump started all the problems, and all the globalists and political Satanists are coming out of the woodwork to get to Trump. There's always a sensitive issue, but there's more here of a hair trigger, as the North Koreans are very sensitive to the additional nuclear-capable aircraft flyovers. To the like of additional, it should say. The United States say biannual exercises are defensive in nature, but North Korea and China have long criticized them as a provocation and affront to regional security. There certainly will be some reaction, said J.D. Williams, a retired Marine colonel and defense policy researcher at the RAND Corporation in California. He said he wouldn't be surprised if North Korea conducted some kind of missile launch, not a test, but a defiant demonstration of might. North Korea last weekend threatened to fire 4 missiles towards Guam, a U.S. territory, a rebuttal to President Trump's fire and fury remarks of August 8th. North Korea's Kim leader backed off that threat. Look at that. He backed off, saying he'd watched the foolish and stupid conduct of the Yankees before deciding on the launch. A decision that Trump quickly tweeted was very wise and well-reasoned. The exchange suggested the cooler heads were prevailing in the latest U.S. standoff with North Korea, even though everybody condemned Trump for speaking strong. But again, dictators understand strong speech. But next week's war games could rekindle hostilities. On Thursday, North Korean state media declared that the military exercise will further drive the situation on the Korean Peninsula into a catastrophe. Held every fall in South Korea, the Ulchi Freedom Guardian warned war games are the world's largest computerized command and control exercise. Some 30,000 U.S. soldiers and more than 50,000 South Korean troops usually take part, along with hundreds of thousands of first responders and civilians, some practicing for a potential chemical weapons attack. The exercise, along with one in March, often triggers anti-war protests in South Korea and condemnation from China. While Xi Jinping has been noticeably cool towards Kim Jong-un and has been critical of North Korea's development of nuclear weapons, China has long wanted the United States to shrink its military footprint in Asia, including some 12 bases in South Korea and Japan. In an editorial Monday, China's Global Times newspaper, an arm of the Communist Party's People's Daily, lambasted the decision by the United States and South Korea to go ahead with Monday's exercises. The drill will definitely provoke Pyongyang more, and Pyongyang is expected to make a more radical response, the newspaper said. If South Korea really wants no war on the Korean Peninsula, it should try to stop this military exercise. It should basically leave South Korea, is what China is saying. North Korea has been known to react strongly during the biennial war games. In 2014, the North fired off Scud missiles during the March exercises held by U.S. South Korean command called Foul Eagle. During the 2015 Ulchi Freedom Guardian exercises, North Korea and South Korea exchanged artillery and rocket fire over their border. That exchange came after 2 South Korean soldiers were maimed stepping on landmines in the demilitarized zone. South Korea accused North Korean soldiers of sneaking across the border and planting the landmines. Now, this used to drive me crazy about Asian culture, okay? Asians have no problem being two-faced, no problem. It's part of their culture. That sounds like a very radical statement because in the West, you're supposed to shoot from the hip, you're supposed to speak your mind, you're supposed to express your opinion, or at least you're supposed to. I understand the leftist lunatic circles, that's not the case. You are supposed to be two-faced. And this used to drive me nuts. The extent to which Asians have no problem having completely different faces. For example, being at home just ravaging the children, just like, you know, mom's just bitching and complaining, like just nagging the hell out of them. And then then they'll go out, meet a teacher, and they'll be just the sweetest, nicest person. And they see no conflict with that. No conflict with that potential time bomb that's going to explode, and their children at some point going to expose them for being so verbally and physically abusive. Right? In the West, that's always a reality. Children will expose their parents. Children will, there's no social consensus. There's no social agreement that everything your parents do stays in the home. Whereas that's probably the same in Japan as well. Is that the same in Japan as well?
I think so, yes.
But very, very strong in Korea. I mean, everything that is done at the home, is socially protected, socially confined. Mm-hmm. And so you have very, very irresponsible parents. I mean, I'm just crazy. And they just let loose on their kids. And it's just totally nuts. I mean, they'll beat them, they'll just abuse them physically, verbally, you know, and then they explain it away as, oh, you know, it's your mom's love for you. I mean, it's just so insane. And so this whole social agreement to have two faces, this whole social agreement to be a total tyrant at home. Okay? And then outside, you try to be like the nicest person. It just drove me nuts. It drove me nuts. It drove me so nuts. You know, it comes with the whole indirect culture. But, you know, it really comes from a totalitarian culture. It comes from a serf culture. It comes when there's a feudalistic culture or a totalitarian culture that has always raped and ravaged you. And anything that you do publicly, okay, if you get on the ruling elite's bad side publicly, you're dead. At the same time, because it's such a totalitarian culture, there's a kiss up, kick down culture. So you can treat your people who are below you like trash because the totalitarians are treating everybody like trash. Right? So there's sort of this mini feudalistic lord mentality. Where as long as you ride the line, you can kiss up, kick down. And there's so many even good-meaning, well-meaning people who are a slave to this, even when I was in Korea. Like the college culture of the Sunbae culture. The Sunbae culture is basically your seniors, right? You could be 1 year younger than them and they can abuse the crap out of you. And that's socially covered up. I mean, they could rape you if you're a girl. They could rape you and you can't say crap about it. And of course, that's what the globalists, that's what the Europeans have become. That's what the leftist lunatics want to bring to America. I mean, you talk about total protection of abuse, total protection of totalitarian nature. And anybody who's been in the family fraud can see it with the Korean leaders' culture, right? That allows for the abuse of those under them, but covers for one another. It's like totally ingrained in Asian culture. Would you agree with that, Tim?
I would agree, yes.
Totally ingrained.
But I'm glad you're saying this and not me.
You know, totally ingrained in Asian culture. And it used to drive me nuts because, you know, but now I kind of understand the roots of that, and that's that Asian people, predominantly, have been under the totalitarian fist of Chinese emperors, Chinese vassal rule, Mongolian and Manchu rule. You see, they've been under these demonic forces, and they've never been able to have the freedom to be able to express themselves, otherwise you'd be killed. Even in Japan, under the samurai feudal lords, if you express any sentiments against them, your head would be cut off. Your limbs would be sliced off with razor blade katanas, which we know how deadly they are. So it's very sad to see that Asian people are conditioned like this and that they're socially constructed to be such as they're engineered to be as such. They don't understand why that's bad. They don't understand why it's not good to just vent on your children. Why that's not a productive thing. They don't get it. And I've seen so many first gen or people who immigrate to the Americas who are Asian just destroy their children. I mean, just their children want nothing to do with them because they're just they're two-faced. In their mind, they're two-faced. At home, they're super abusive. Outside, they pretend like they're the best citizen. And it drives young Asian kids crazy to see that. And I always rag on Asians, don't do that. Don't act like a freaking lunatic at home and then expect your children to cover up for you. They're not going to cover up for you in the West. They're going to expose you. They may even call cops on you. So in that scenario, there's really no accountability for the parents in Asia. There's really very little accountability in how they raise their children. And by doing that, what happens is they raise new totalitarians. They raise people who learn this kiss up, kick down culture. And by learning that, they create a more evil society. And that's why, of course, they needed the Lord. They need the Lord. Because he has to reformulate that. That sense of loyalty to totalitarianism has to be reformulated towards God. Think about if God was totalitarian nature. Think about if he didn't uphold justice. I mean, you talk about these Korean moms that just nag the crap out of their kids and just vent on them whenever they feel emotionalized or emotionally, stressed. They don't hold it in like an adult and process that emotion. They just vent on the kids and just beat the hell out of them verbally. And of course, many times physically. It's so stupid. It's just like a lack of control. When I see it, it drives me nuts because it's so puerile, so infantile. And you got these people basically societally, not only engineered, but protected to be in an arrested state of development constantly. Yes, sometimes kids need a whooping, when they do real evil things. But nagging kills children. It doesn't help at all. Kids have no problem if they get a whooping and it makes sense to them why they're getting a whooping. You've been given 3 warnings, 10 warnings. We've talked about this millions of times, and you also agreed that you would get whooped or whatever. But that's why, for example, I didn't need to whoop my kids. I mean, I can. Everybody now realizes that I'm very dangerous as a martial artist, even though I come across very nicely, and for many years nobody even knew. That's how ninja I was about it. I was a real ninja in that sense. I had a totally different side that people had no idea I had. Now they realize I have it, but that didn't just come because I wished it into existence. I've been training for the last I've been training since I was 14 years old. I just keep it very ninja. And by seeing me on the front, you probably would never know. Okay. So I could beat up little kids. My gosh, give me a break. It's not a difficult thing for me to do, but give me a break. But I didn't need to do that to my kids because I could use logic and rationale. We could use a warning system which they could understand and give them consequences, such as sitting in the toilet for 10 minutes in the bathroom. Go sit in your safe space. Go sit in the, what is that?
Quiet
study hall. And introspectively be reflective.
Can I say one thing before?
Go ahead, Tim.
One example of what you're talking about is something we ran into when you and Kuk Chinim were fighting the kidnapping and deconversion of Japanese members. Where 4,000 members, that were kidnapped and deconverted over almost like 20 years, where the police would refuse to get involved in these kinds of instances because this is a family affair.
It's a family issue, right?
The police would not get involved with anything that happened within the family.
You see this? It's like this. It's this culture of protecting abuse and protecting evil. Now, of course, obviously we should be compassionate and we should understand that people have different levels of growth and their stages of growth and development. But when you have a whole society that is covering up for each other, that is literally a big fraternity, it's like ridiculous. It's so sad to see because that's certainly not the ideal. That creates absolute totalitarianism. But there is a loyalty there. I mean, the mafia is loyal to one another. And that loyalty needed to be converted from that totalitarianism and political Satanism, really social engineer Satanism, to become that which is based on the love of God. The loyalty that's converted to God. The loyalty then converts into justice, to seeking justice. The loyalty that seeks to grow beyond a state of arrested development. You see what I'm saying? But Koreans don't have this. They don't realize how abusive they are, especially to the next generation. And they expect the next generation to be just like them, which are totalitarians. That is not the kingdom of God. And of course, here we are in the same situation with Asia. Xi Jinping speaking out of one face and the next minute doing the opposite. I mean, this two-faced mentality is completely normalized in Asia. Totally normalized. And it's fine. You just, like, they have nothing, they can't do anything about it. They just laugh at it. That's how sad it is. That's how enslaved Asian people are. That's how enslaved and how slave mentality they have. And when I see that, I weep for them because I'm Asian too. Of course, I'm born in America and we don't have that kind of culture. But when I look at Asia, it's so sad. And that's why the kingdom must come, so they can finally understand that they are not to be slaves, they are not to be abusers, but they are to be the protectors and defenders of justice, freedom, and to be sovereigns who can stand up against tyrants, even though they're a tyrant right now. We'll be right back after this short break. Stay with us on the King's Report. And we are back. Welcome back to Team Sport this Friday, August 18th, 2017. I'm your host, Hung Sean Moon, second king of Chanuguk. Let's get back to that Korea exchange. During the 2015 Ulchi Freedom Guardian exercises, North Korea and South Korea exchanged artillery and rocket fire over their border. That exchange came from after 2 South Korean soldiers were maimed stepping on landmines in the demilitarized zone. South Korea accused North Korean soldiers of sneaking across the border and planting the landmines. China and Russia have been urging the United States to consider a freeze-for-freeze agreement to reduce tensions. In such a deal, Pyongyang would agree to suspend its tests of missiles and nuclear weapons, and Washington and Seoul would agree to suspend large-scale military exercises. U.S. military experts say such a deal would give a lopsided advantage to North Korea, which could continue its military training even as the U.S.-South Korea exercises were suspended. It is hard to imagine why the United States would accept that, because of the vulnerability it would create, said Bruce Bennett, a senior defense researcher at RAND. In a media briefing on Tuesday, U.S. State Department spokeswoman Heather Nauert said the United States will continue to hold joint exercises in South Korea. The next day, the administration's Korea plans were rocked by quotes attributed to Bannon. The White House chief strategist, in an interview with the American Prospect, Bannon said he might consider a deal in which North Korea suspended its nuclear buildup with verifiable inspections, and the U.S. removed its troops from the peninsula.
Sounds like Kissinger got to Bannon.
Bannon, of course, hates the wars that we're involved in overseas. He's a real nationalist in the form of Ron Paul as well, that they believe that all this foreign intervention is problematic. Now, we understand the providential role that America played, and that at times it did have to stand up, particularly, for example, for Korea, because the Messiah was there. It had to play the role to protect the life of the Messiah, And Father does give credit even to the UN at that time, whose UN forces came in and liberated him from Hungnam prison death camp. So we know providentially God used America to not do expansionism, not to conquer, to have a conquest mentality, have an imperial modality or hegemonic perspective, but to be used to defend that small nation, basically like Israel in the east, to protect the place of the Messiah, so that the Messiah then can do the rest of the work worldwide and actually survive World War III, right? World War II, okay, and World War I, etc. So we understand that, but of course it's been hijacked and taken away by Satan to then be a continual war machine for profiteering off of and for hegemonic expansionism, which really then allows us to be collapsed into a world governance and a world government which allows the political Satanists to rule with communism over the rest of the world. Now that is a problem. That is a problem. That is definitely not the spread of Godism, but the spread of political Satanism. Okay? Now, getting back to my whole rant on Asian people, how they drive me nuts sometimes. What's sad about that whole tyrannical, totalitarian culture, like I would sometimes see Asian people and they're acting like freaking tyrants, like literally like a Genghis Khan. Like out of a movie, I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you? You know, and it used to drive me nuts because I didn't understand the Asian culture. And you know what's weird? If you don't act like that in Asia, they think you're weird. They think you're nuts for not wanting to abuse people under you. They think you're weird for not doing a kiss up, kick down culture. They're like, what's wrong with you? I'm not joking. I'm not joking. They literally think you're some kind of wacko. It's like, what? Oh, you don't know the reality of the world. Well, that's the world they live in. Unfortunately, it's a socially engineered world. It's a socially constructed world. It's a rule. It's a role of indirect political Satanism. It's a role where the people, the citizens, are slaves. They're not sovereigns. You can't treat a sovereign like that. They'll freaking shoot your head off. They'll wage war on you. You have to be diplomatic. You have to be polite in a sovereign nation where there are sovereigns there. You have to be polite to one another. You have to treat each other with respect, lest a war break out. You have to try to solve issues with jurisprudence and fairness and with due process and trial by jury, which Chanuguk is. Okay? But it's so sad because it just, whenever I see that in Asian people, it just reinforces how controlled they are. And then I had these, then I would see these Western control freaks, these liberal lunatics, saying, oh, Asian children are so nice and good. They just obey and listen so well. Literally. You'd have teachers praising Asian children who came from Korea, foreign exchange students, you name it. Oh, these Asian children are so exemplary because they wanted to make everybody a slave. This is not a good part of culture. And then they make Asians believe that that's part of their culture when it's a totalitarian culture, when it's not part of real human culture. Unfortunately, it's a part of satanic human culture, but not a culture of God's kingdom. In God's kingdom, where people are sovereigns and they have their own guns in the territory, you can't treat people like that. You can't have a kiss-up, kick-down culture. You have to treat people with respect. You have to respect their space. You have to respect their land. You have to respect their guns. See how that's different? And that's why in America you have a different, radically different culture than Europe, which has centralized the use of force and the centralization of weapons. Because you have had a satanic monarchy system there. But in America, you have a different system because even the pauper has to be respected by the rich man. Because the pauper got some guns. Many times the pauper has more guns. Because they're not morally posturing, trying to pretend like they're just nice people, meanwhile they want to be totalitarians. No, the pauper knows that, hey, they got to defend the little that they have. Right? So, when one approaches somebody who has 1 acre, and that person has 1 billion acres, on that 1 acre of land, their 1 billion acres mean crap. Nothing, means nothing. On that 1 acre land, that person is the king. You see? And that person has the right and rights of kings. He has a right to bear arms, he has a right to weapons, he has guns. A rich man or a 1 billion acre landowner cannot disrespect that 1 acre of land. Because if he does, he's going to get war. He's going to get a sniper. You see what I'm saying? There will be a fight. And remember, in the end, the top level of negotiation, at the top level of negotiating is basically force. Who has the stronger force? If we have stronger force than you, we'll just take you over. I mean, that's what every nation is basically negotiating all the time. We have enough force to defend ourselves. We have enough force to take over that nation. You see, it's always that. Geopolitics is basically the demonstration of the use of force. That's all it is. And of course, they don't want you to be awake to this or understand that that's a reality of the world. And they want you to believe in this little serfdom system where in which you're supposed to be told, you're patted on the head for being such a good little thing, for bowing to the aristocrats and the super elite and the politicians, sucking their toes. And it's so sad when I see Asian people, like when I first got there, right? And I have, obviously everybody knows I have the ability to be charismatic. I have the ability to be very forceful and powerful. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be nice to people. I wanted to be kind. I wanted to be patient. I didn't want to, get mad at people publicly. Like when I first got to Asia. And they thought I was nuts. They thought I was a pushover. They thought I was weak. They thought I had no leadership. And just because I wanted to treat people nice.
I think Korean men learn their leadership skills in the military.
Yeah, and the military is not even learning military stuff. The military, you're learning how to kiss up, kick down. You're learning how to bow to the government. You're learning how to worship the state. You're learning how to obey the commands of the state. That's all you learn how to become a state puppet. Okay? And I even had all the girls, even in my household, tell me, oh, please unleash some of that charisma. Come on, unleash some of that. I'm like, I don't want to be like that. You know what I'm saying? It just becomes like a cult of personality then. And it's really weird. Like, it's weird. If somebody in Korea, right? If somebody is like if you're speaking to a crowd and then you start like getting mad at one of the people, or like you shout at them like, "Shut up!" They love it. They absolutely love it. They think that's actually, they call that chung. Chung means like artistic closeness. That I can be reprimanded in public. Anyways, for a Westerner, you're gonna think it's nuts. Okay, you don't get it. You don't get it. Because Western people are so, you know, they're not raised that way, so they're sensitive to those kinds of issues, and they think that that's wacky, that's crazy, it's nuts. Okay. Even though through the internet, the Westerners have become very much more, you know, understanding that that's part of some ethnicities' cultures. But it used to drive me nuts. Like, I didn't want to show the kids. I didn't want to set that example of just being charismatic all the time, because I didn't want young people to follow that example, that thinking that leadership is based on charisma, which it's not. Leadership is based on a lot on intelligence and the right decision making and wisdom. More than intelligence, I would say wisdom. You have to make the right decisions for people. You have to make the right decisions for your organization. The organization has to continue to develop and grow for people to be attracted and to be confident to follow it. Whether you like that or not, that's irrelevant. That's the way the world works. Leadership is not about being charismatic and popular. Those are very low-level leaders like Hollywood celebrities. They're not really leaders. They're puppets of producers and executives and managers. So that was always bothering me. But in the end, I have to just realize, okay, God gave me that gift of charisma, and I had to use it. At some point, I had to just say, okay, I have to use it. I have to use it. I have it. It's a language people understand, especially the Asians understand. And I have to speak that language they understand. I can't continue to blame them. First of all, I can't change their society. I can't change all their social conditioning in a couple of years. I can't change all their brainwashing. I have to speak to them in the way they understand, and then lead them out of that, so that they can become true people and sovereigns of God. But you see this in the situation with Asia all the time. It's always this, always this. And here we go, look at this picture. They got a picture of them mocking Trump. And again, we are the only ones out there demonstrating against these leftist lunatics and the George Soros-funded operatives and the big conglomerate-funded operatives who get millions of dollars of donations from the big conglomerates to push what socialism and communism, so they can collude with government and steal and rape and ravage the public with higher and higher taxes, higher and higher subterfuge, and higher control. Poor Asian people, brainwashed because they're funded by some stupid George Soros-like people and or actual George Soros organizations to make and mock Trump, make fun of Trump. Saying he's got bombs in his mouth when he's the one who just literally stopped Kim Jong-un from shooting and setting off World War III in Guam. But of course, it's only our people again. It's only our people again who are out there demonstrating against these leftist lunatics and these commies who are now infiltrating and taking over South Korea. We'll be right back after the short break. Stay with us on the King's Report.
Your love so deep is washing over me. Your face is all I see. You are my everything.
Hi guys, I'm down here at the range today. I just learned a new technique from the father of the 44 Magnum, Elmer Keith, which is called shooting out of the notch, which allows you to make really long distance shots and still have an extremely precise sight picture. So I brought my CW9 car down, and with this little gun, we're gonna shoot this little munchkin at 200 yards up in the hills, applying this technique, and hopefully we'll make the shot. To apply this technique, instead of using the blade of the front sight, lined up with the top of the rear sight, I'm going to take the dot of the front sight and raise it up so that it's out of the notch, but I'm still going to keep the front sight on my target. Bringing that front sight up like that is going to compensate for the bullet drop over that excessively long distance with just this little gun. So if applied right, we should be making contact. Let's see how it goes. I saw this shot, so I'm a little bit out of breath because you gotta run to make sure that is what I thought it was, and it was. So while making this shot, from that distance with these white dot sights, it literally would cover the entire target. You couldn't see what you were shooting. So using the Elmer Keith technique, you were able to raise it out of the back notch. I can't breathe. Out of the back notch, allowing you to keep your accuracy, aim, and also still see the target, which is key because it was a hard shot, not gonna lie. But yeah, it went great, and Elmer knows what he's talking about. And for such a small gun to be able to take that hit, I'm very impressed with this. All right, guys, be sure to like and share, and I'll see you out on the range.
That was awesome. Hey, can I try that one? Yeah, let's see what the 380. Does everybody have eyes and ears?
And we are back. Welcome back to the King's Report this Friday, August 18th, 2017. Now, the leftist lunatics are at it again. Cal Exit 3, new ballot measure plots another route for California independence. First there was Cal Exit, then Cal Exit 2. On Thursday, people unhappy with California's place in the United States filed yet another proposed ballot that could lead the Golden State striking out of on its own. By the way, the Golden State, all of it doesn't want to strike out on its own. The northern side wants to get rid of the southern side, and they may split off from there and let the communists try to run their own country, which will implode like Cuba and Venezuela, where they centralize all the guns and rule you like freaking Maduro and Castro. Huh? You like that? Yay! Great job, California. You pathetic, brain-dead imbeciles.
Again, Toffee was explaining to me, she moved here from California recently, she said that the split can't happen because most of the water comes from the north and the south can't survive without the water from the north.
What will the south do with no money, no economy, all socialism? They have to buy their water, they have to import it from the north, which will be a different country. Oh, you dumb pieces of idiocy. I mean, they're so stupid. I mean, this is like a little child rambling about, I don't get anything from mommy and daddy. Meanwhile, they get everything. They're just spoiled children. Thinking that they're doing something honorable and I'm fighting for California independence. Let's see how long California without the United States and due process exists. Where you have the politicians and your colluding political Satanists running you like a freaking pimp running a hoe. Let's see how long you want to stay in that country. Let's see how many successful people stay there. Let's see how your Hollywood stars stay there. Talking about they love socialism. And as soon as it gets a little hot, they flee. They take their money and go because they don't give a crap about you. Like George Clooney, who says, oh, the U.S., I'm sick with that. I'm going to London. And then because of London massacres and terrorist attacks, he says, oh crap, I'm coming back to the U.S. These people are total frauds. You think they love you? They don't give a crap about you. All they want is popularity. They want to be worshipped. They don't love you. Just like all those stupid false gods who don't give a crap about, who want to exploit and ravage you. Talking about some stupid Cal exit again. Give me a break. The measure says a reworked constitution should include a provision creating a clear and reasonable path for states to achieve complete independence from the United States should any state so choose. The state has become independent under the existing U.S. Constitution. The world has changed dramatically since 1787. Reads the preamble of the California Calls for a Constitution Convention, or CalCon-Con. Thursday's measure is the latest attempt at using the ballot box to revamp California's relationship with the federal government. A Cal exit proposal set a timeline for votes on independence, which fizzled. A measure filed this spring seeks more autonomy and possible independence. The CalCon-Con team includes Marcos Ruiz Evans, who was vice president of the Yes California that crafted Cal Exit 1. He resigned this spring when the effort petered out, saying the movement's leader, Louis Marinelli, had become a distraction because of his ties to Russia. Of course, it's always another person's fault for these socialists. 6 things about Cal Exit, the plan for California to secede from the U.S. And there you go. Let's see the Cal Exit math that these liberal lunatics are trying to push.
And I'm here with Wayfair to show you guys how to make this awesome indoor hanging herb garden.
But first, I guess we have to watch this stupid ad for 22 seconds. And there you go. That's how ridiculous it is. There is the Marco Ruiz Evans, Senate Vice President of the Yes California Independence campaign, talks about California seceding from the United States and becoming its own nation. He's part of the CalCon-Con team. And there you go. Let's take a look at the Cal Exit math. Give me a break. Northern California would not take it. They'd split off of the stupid socialist camp. How much do you receive in federal money, you stupid idiots? You little spoiled brats. What about federal subsidies? In the trillions. They're so stupid. They think that because they're artsy and they can make cute little videos that they know how to run their own nation. These pathetic idiots.
No more Maxine Waters. Think about it. No more Maxine Waters. That sounds pretty good to me.
Well, it would be good. I mean, all these leftist lunatics would be isolated into their own hellhole.
No more Nancy Pelosi.
And they couldn't try to implode the rest of America. And you would probably have the North California break off from them and say, hey, we don't want to be with Trump. We don't want to be with we don't want to be with these crazies. They're just living in la la land out there in California. That's what beautiful weather does to you. You know, it doesn't make you conscious of the earthquakes, the high possible the gang rapes and the gangs all around you. It doesn't make you it doesn't make you privy to the fact that you're being run like a little surveilled little bug and insect in a concrete jungle that is made to look cool. I mean, it's so stupid. And that's what beautiful weather does. It just makes you dumb. It makes you brain dead. It makes you just open to drugs and relaxation and always trying to be seeking, pleasure seeking all the time. It's just ridiculous. Hot weather, warm weather, bikini girls, and palm trees makes a problem. It's a bad recipe. Bad recipe. Not the saying that God didn't create warm weather, or bikinis for marriage.
I'm trying not to smile.
But again, boy oh boy, there's what did they say? California, where all the fruits live. where all the fruits are grown. Oh, Lord have mercy, mercy, mercy. That's not saying that people can't be productive in warm countries. They can be very productive. It's just when you have socialism there, it just makes everybody into a fruitcake. Deportations decline as fewer seek illegal entry on U.S. border. The number of undocumented immigrants deported during the first half of 2017 fell 14% from a year earlier as fewer people tried to illegally enter the U.S. on the southern border, according to the Trump administration. There were 104,618 people deported through June, down from 121,000 during the same month in 2016, according to data provided Thursday by the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement in response to a query. In previous years, the number of deportations was boosted by law enforcement officials apprehending more people just after they illegally crossed the U.S. border, said Matthew Bork, an ICE spokesman. As few people enter the United States illegally on the border, removals are going to be impacted, he said. President Donald Trump made border security a centerpiece of his campaign last year and is pressing lawmakers to provide funding for a wall along the southern border with Mexico to prevent illegal immigration. He also promised to crack down on undocumented immigrants already in the United States. Even as deportations have declined, arrests of undocumented immigrants by ICE agents increased 37% in the first 6 months of the year compared with the same period last year. This year there were 75,000 arrests compared with about 54.6 thousand a year earlier. Among those arrested, more of the suspects than in previous years have never committed a crime, said Ryan Eller, executive director of Define America, an advocacy group that tells immigrants stories to frame debate on the topic. Reported again by Bloomberg. Forced to report on the fact that not only is Trump not just deporting everybody, the fact that illegal entry now is dropped tremendously. These total leftist lunatics always trying to frame reality and to wage war on actual reality and common sense. Also in other news, filmmaker, leftist lunatic, communist, commie, enemy of the state, enemy of your family, enemy of common sense and decency, Michael Moore says Trump will get us all killed, when Michael Moore is the one who's trying to get us all killed by putting us under the totalitarian fist of fat little Jabba the Hutt, despicable, crinkly, nasty things like him who will rule over us, disarm us, and be able to boss us around while laughing and making his movies, smoking on cigars and drinking wine with naked women all around him, or whatever deviant sexuality this fool is into. What a pathetic, despicable, disgusting individual. Documentary filmmaker Michael Moore, trading screen time for the stage once again in a one-man show now on Broadway that's called to action over the current state of U.S. politics. The show, The Terms of My Surrender, uses a more satirical brand of humor to target U.S. President Donald Trump and encourage liberals to turn resentment over Trump and the Republican political agenda into actual resistance. This guy's going to get us killed. There's nobody in charge. This man has nuclear codes. More 60 blah, 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 told Reuters Television in an interview on Thursday. He says the same stupid things every time. I'm hoping somebody in the Pentagon is protecting us, like whatever is in that nuclear briefcase, it's just some girlfriend's phone number or something. I'm just hoping that it's not the real numbers because we're in desperate shape here, said Moore, a longtime liberal and harsh critic of Trump. These people are not liberals, okay? They are totalitarians. Moore's show varies each night. On Tuesday, he invited the audience to board buses and join him after the performance in a wider protest underway outside Trump Tower on nearby Fifth Avenue in Manhattan, where the president had arrived a day earlier to stay at a high-rise home for the first time since taking office in January. Look at that pathetic idiot. Loves to lecture on you on why you should be in a communist country and how capitalism is so bad. Meanwhile, he's got mansions in California alongside the lake that are worth millions and millions of dollars. He tries to morally posture by saying how loving he is to the poor when he's trying to exploit them for political power and centralized power, to disarm the public, to get rid of any opposition, and to rule like Venezuela. But meanwhile, he tries to pretend that he's so humble and He's so loving because he just wears a t-shirt and cargo pants. What a total hypocrite. What a total just snob-nosed, drooling, foaming at the mouth, Jabba the Hutt, fake nice guy, fake moral posturing, pathetic pimp, Michael Moore. What a pathetic idiot. By the end of this run, 100,000 people would have seen the show, and each of them will tell 10 people things I said or did here tonight. That's 1 million people I reached through a Broadway show, he said. Moore said that far from being depressed by the action of Trump and events in Washington in the 2 weeks since starting the show, he has drawn strength from his appearances. What a pathetic idiot. We'll be right back after this short break. Stay with us on the King's Report.
I'm down here at the range today. I just learned a new technique from the father of the 44 Magnum, Elmer Keith, which is called shooting out of the notch, which allows you to make really long distance shots and still have an extremely precise sight picture. So I brought my CW9 car down, and with this little gun, we're gonna shoot this little munchkin at 200 yards up in the hills, applying this technique, and hopefully we'll make the shot. To apply this technique, instead of using the blade of the front sight lined up with the top of the rear sight, I'm going to take the dot of the front sight and raise it up so that it's out of the notch, but I'm still going to keep the front sight on my target. Bringing that front sight up like that is going to compensate for the bullet drop over that excessively long distance with just this little gun. So if applied right, we should be making contact. Let's see how it goes. I saw this shot, so I'm a little bit out of breath because you gotta run to make sure that is what I thought it was, and it was. So while making this shot, from that distance with these white dot sights, it literally would cover the entire target. You couldn't see what you were shooting. So using the Elmer Keith technique, you were able to raise it out of the back notch, I can't breathe, out of the back notch, allowing you to keep your accuracy, aim, and also still see the target, which is key because it was a hard shot, not gonna lie. But yeah, it went great, and Elmer knows what he's talking about. And for such a small gun to be able to take that hit, I'm very impressed with this. All right, guys, be sure to like and share, and I'll see you out on the range.
That was awesome. Hey, can I try that one? Yeah, let's see with the 380. Does everybody have eyes and ears?
.58. .614. .646.
This time, 471. Hello folks, I'm Justin Moon, the president of Carr Firearms Group, and today I've got the PM40. with True Glow night sights. And look at that, Magna porting. Magna porting. Look at that porting on that. This is our standard PM40 with the day sights, but now this model with the Magna porting and the True Glow night sights. What a difference. The 40 caliber PMs have a reputation for being quite a bit of a kicker. They do kick a lot. And so we put the Magna porting on these PM40s, and boy, what a difference does that make. It really makes this PM40 shoot a lot softer, reduces the muzzle flip, the recoil comes straight back into you, and becomes a very manageable pistol.
And we are back. Welcome back to the King's Report. This morning, Friday, August 18, 2017. I am your host, Hyung-Jin Sean Moon, second king of Cheongguk. And in other news, Apple CEO donates millions to far-left groups. Same CEO does business with homophobic countries. Reported by Jamie White of Infowars.com. Apple CEO Tim Cook pledged to donate $2 million to leftist groups in a memo condemning racism and bigotry, quote, following the violence in Charlottesville, Virginia last weekend. The tech company will donate $1 million to the Southern Poverty Law Center, and another $1 million to the Anti-Defamation League, ADL, both being groups that have targeted conservative figures, publications, and groups for years. They have literally been the mafia for the leftist lunatics, condemning every form of sovereignty, every form of those who are seeking self-determination, and supporting every form of totalitarian regime. And there you go. NewsWars, lies die in the light. This is Infowars' new publication. Both SPLC and LDL seemingly consider hate to be any point of view that disagrees with their leftist ideology, evidenced by past action of both groups against conservatives and Republicans in the last few years. Last December, the SPLC published a Terror of the Right list, which bizarrely included the Black Lives Matter inspired murders of police officers in Dallas and Baton Rouge, as well as Orlando Pulse nightclub attack that left 49 dead. Preceding the election in November, ADL added Pippi the Frog, a popular internet meme, to the hate symbol database, which includes the swastika, SS lightning bolts, and burning cross, after Hillary Clinton campaign and the corporate media claimed it was a symbol of white supremacy, following the widespread proliferation of pro-Trump Pippi memes during the presidential race. That cartoon frog is more sinister than you might realize, declared HillaryClinton.com. In recent months, Pippi has been almost entirely co-opted by the white supremacists who call themselves the alt-right. Cook's self-repressed intolerance for bigotry rings hollow, concerning his numerous business deals with Saudi Arabia, a country that viciously punishes homosexuality with floggings and executions. The tech Titan also opened several Apple stores in the United Arab Emirates, an Islamic Gulf state which also delivers harsh punishment to gays, including jail time, fines, and deportation. There you go. There you go. The colluders with the leftist lunatics and the totalitarians, Apple completely suiciding itself, because as they try to support their own organizations in their totalitarian collusion with government, people are starting to realize they don't want to support that anymore. And there's other competitors that they can choose from, like Samsung. Samsung, of course, colludes with the Korean government, but again, they're not they're not funding the Southern Poverty Law Center or Anti-Defamation League at this level. Probably not. And literally trying to start civil war and the persecution of conservatives in America, which is the last dwindling force of conservatism and sovereignty and common sense in the world. Let's go to Tim for his report. Tim?
Okay, American left adopts Taliban tactics in destruction of historical icons.
There you go. There you go.
On Breitbart, yeah. As the American left targets historical icons for removal and or destruction, one is reminded of the way the Taliban destroyed centuries-old Buddhist statues and the Islamic State's ongoing violence against Christian churches and landmarks. In short, the American left, the Taliban, and the Islamic State have two things in common. First, an inability to appreciate the whole of history as it happened, which includes good times and bad. And secondly, a tendency to express this lack of appreciation via violence and destruction. For example, on March 12, 2001, the Telegraph reported that the world's two largest standing Buddhas, one of them 165 feet high, were blown up by the Taliban in Afghanistan. The statues were 1,700 years old, yet the Taliban drilled holes into the torsos of the two statues and then placed dynamite charges inside the holes to blow them up. Taliban Foreign Minister Wakil Ahmad Muttaq said, "We do admit the relics were the cultural heritage of Afghanistan, but the part that contradicts our Islamic beliefs, we would not like to have them anymore." In a similar vein, following the toppling of Confederate statue in Durham, North Carolina, Workers' World Party member Qasima Weinman said if the people decide they want to remove such a statue, that should be their right, according to CNN. And National Geographic shows that the tactic of destroying history has been a big part of the Islamic State's method of operation. The Islamic State destroyed the ancient ruins of Palmyra, consisting of colonnaded avenues and impressive temples. This included one temple which had endured for 1,900 years, only to be blown to bits in August 2015. National Geographic also reported that the Islamic State destroyed the Roman trading city of Apamea and the Greek settlement of Dura Europos. Dura Europos was located on the Euphrates River and was home to the world's oldest known Christian church. It is now home to cratered landscape. Nineveh, located on the outskirts of Mosul, Iraq, had a cultural history that flourished between 900 and 600 BC. But when the Islamic State conquered Mosul in 2014, they raided the artifacts, destroyed statues, and looting much of what they did not destroy. Eventually, Mosul University Library was burned, and the city's central public library was rigged with explosives and razed, together with thousands of manuscripts and instruments used by Arab scientists. The similar motivations between all these various destructive tendencies, especially the targeting of libraries, begs the question that radio talk show host Laura Ingraham has already asked. Real Clear Politics quoted Ingraham as saying, quote, "What else will be subjected to the American left's eradication and enunciation? What about books? Are they going to start burning books too?" Well, one bright note is that the Confederate monuments are going to stay at the Gettysburg battlefield. Out of Gettysburg, this is an AP article. Officials with the National Park Service said the Confederate monuments at Gettysburg National Military Park in Pennsylvania will not be removed from the battlefield. And Katie Lawhorn, senior advisor for the Park Service's Gettysburg Battlefield Office, told the Reading Eagle that the site-specific memorials keeps jumping around here, are important, and the Park Service's job is to historically and objectively tell the stories the monuments commemorate. Her reassurance comes after a heated debate over Confederate monuments spread across the U.S. 3 people died in turmoil, et cetera, et cetera. We already know about that. Bob Adams, a volunteer at the Gettysburg battlefield, said the removal of the statues is breaking her heart. It's just so upsetting to me. These men, these soldiers fought for what they believed in, she said. Area tour guide Elaine Leslie suggested putting up statues honoring abolitionists Harriet Tubman or Frederick Douglass. The Gettysburg battlefield has more than 1,300 monuments that tell the story of the deadliest engagements in the Civil War. 30 of them are dedicated to Confederate states, military units, and individuals. More than 7,000 soldiers died in the Battle of Gettysburg from July 1 to July 3, 1863. About 3.7 million tourists visit the area each year. You wonder, after the statues, Laura Ingraham was worried they might go to books. I suppose if they keep on going, maybe Washington, D.C. will have to change its name. Clinton, D.C., Obama, D.C.
There you go.
And what about Washington State?
Well, also, Washington Times reports that Abraham Lincoln Monument is torched in Chicago, an absolute disgraceful act. Vice magazine calls for the blowing up of Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, there you go. Taliban.
Vice magazine tweets calls for blowing up Mount Rushmore.
Taliban.
Literally, that's a good way to put it, actually. They're acting like the Taliban.
Yes.
Trying to deface historical monuments.
That was a
and destroy
Breitbart
things.
story.
Merkel called a traitor, defends refugee stance in rowdy East Germany. Sex symbol, sex doll fans keep asking for bots that look just like this one iconic celebrity, Marilyn Monroe, who want to have sex with a sex doll of Marilyn Monroe. Weather Channel founder reported by My News Asia, which is having a hard time loading, denies climate change, so, quote, put me to death. As a outspoken climate change denier. CIA torture psychologists. 2 psychologists who helped design the CIA post-9/11 interrogation program settled a lawsuit Thursday by detainees alleging they were illegally tortured. The secret settlement in the suit brought on behalf of 2 living ex-detainees and one who died of hypothermia under brutal questioning in U.S. custody, avoided what would have been the first public trial of Central Intelligence Agency's use of torture on suspected al-Qaeda members. But also allowed the 2 psychologists who supplied the CIA with coercive interrogation techniques, James Mitchell and Bruce Jessen, to maintain that they personally had nothing to do with the use of waterboarding, extreme stress positions, and beatings on detainees. Even though they're the ones who designed it in their twisted minds. When all the evidence shows that torture doesn't work and people will just tell you whatever the hell you want them to tell you. Which is the reason why the CIA wants it, because they want to place false narratives in these people so as to justify their centralized state and centralized control and deep state apparatus, which does illegal wars all over the place, including running the freaking drug trade out of Afghanistan. So of course they want to be able to do techniques which would force people on record to tell them what they want to hear, because they can use that as propaganda and say in the news that look, these people are doing exactly what we said they were doing because we're waterboarding them and torturing them and cutting their testicles out unless they say the things we want them to say. These people are absolutely despicable and disgusting. Trump has to go after them, and he is, and that's why they want to kill our president. We have to be praying more than any time right now, folks, because it is an intense spiritual time. There's spiritual attack all over the place, all over the world, especially people who are standing with God on the microcosm. So stay safe. We got to pray for each other, pray for one another, and of course pray for the 3 kingships, pray for Chanigug, and of course pray for our president on the microcosm, pray for those who are standing for sovereignty, because we represent the same civilization. That is, we may not be all perfect, but God, we stand with God and on God's side. For sovereignty, freedom, and responsibility, and the kingdom that is His. We'll be right back after the short break. Stay with us.
darkness hide. My faith is dead, I need a resurrection somehow. No, I'm lost in your freedom. And this world I'll overcome. My God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion. He's roaring. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Our God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring, he's roaring like a lion. He's roaring, he's roaring, he's roaring like a lion.
God's not dead.
Let love explode and bring the dead to life. A love so bold to see a revolution somehow. Let love explode and bring the dead to life. A love so bold to bring a revolution somehow. No, I'm lost in your freedom. And this world I'll overcome. My God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring, he's roaring like a lion. Let hope arise and make the darkness hide. My faith is dead, I need a resurrection somehow. No, I'm lost in your freedom. And this world I'll overcome. My God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Our God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring, he's roaring like a lion. He's roaring, he's roaring, he's roaring like a lion, roaring like a lion. Let love explode and bring the dead to life. A love so bold to see a revolution somehow. Let love explode and bring the dead to life. A love so bold to bring a revolution somehow.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
And we are back. Welcome back to the King's Report this Friday, August 18th, 2017. I'm your host, Hung Ji-Sean Moon, the second king of Cheongguk, and we are joined with patriot, entrepreneur, and family man, husband, community activist, you name it. We are joined with Richard Urban today. Richard Urban is a native of New Jersey with Polish and Austrian parents. Was raised by a loving dad and mom and a great-grandma. He has two older brothers and an older sister. Richard attended Duke University in 1975 before spending 6 years doing volunteer ministry and sales work. Richard was blessed in marriage with his wife Stacy in 1982. Richard and Stacy settled in Washington with his wife Stacy and has taken an active interest in community affairs since then. He worked as an award-winning district manager for circulation at the Washington Times newspaper for 5 years. At that time, Richard lived in the Brookland area of Washington, D.C. Richard created a home service exchange to allow community members to offer services to their neighbors, such as plumbing, drywall, or other needed services. He also visited many churches and began working with pastors to promote community and world peace and strong families. In 1989, he began to dedicate himself full-time to community-based business. He moved to the Capitol Hill area where he currently resides in 1989. Richard co-founded the Barney Circle Neighborhood Watch Association, Orange Hat Patrol, on Dr. King's birthday in 1990. In 1994, Richard and Stacy founded Urban Grocery LLC, a socially responsible home grocery delivery business serving Washington, D.C. and suburbs serving delivery customers directly from 1987 to 2016. Currently, Urban Grocery sells grocery delivery online software to stores and entrepreneurs, serving a number of entrepreneurs throughout the nations in locations including Pittsburgh, Maryland, West Virginia, and Iowa. The Urbans also served their own neighbors directly in the Harpers Ferry, West Virginia area. Richard began giving abstinence-based presentations in local schools in 1997. Richard and Stacy founded Urban Life Training in March 2003. Richard is committed to giving every youth in Washington, D.C. the best chance for success. That includes helping youth to abstain from sex before marriage, as well as abstain from drugs and alcohol. Richard wants to see sensible tax and social service policies that give a full deduction for children and for couples who are married, as compared to just living together without marriage. A city that has more intact families has less crime and is a better place to live. Richard is a champion for each youth's right to choose a lifestyle of sexual abstinence and to be free to seek the goal of marriage and family that they naturally desire. Since 2011, Urban Life Training has offered God-centered training that helps youth and young adults understand the roots of an abstinence-centered lifestyle. In 2010, Richard ran for a council of District of Columbia at large seat against David Catania. Richard received about 10,000 votes as a first-time candidate. He is a father of one daughter who graduated from University of District of Columbia and one son who is native of Uganda. Richard and Stacy traveled to Uganda in 2011 to meet their son. The adoption was finalized in 2012. Currently, Richard and Stacy have helped to start the Peace Kingdom Center in Kampala, which is affiliated with the Unification Sanctuary. Richard and Stacy also founded Vision Root, and since 2012 have authored daily inspiration scripture readings, which are distributed to subscribers by email and also on their website at www.visionroot.org, urbangrocery.com, urbangrocery.net, and urbanlifetraining.org. Richard, thank you so much for joining us this morning on the King's Report. That's quite a bio there. And you talk about strong parents. Tell us a little about your parents and how you were raised and why that was so important in your formative years to have that kind of strong family, which eventually led you to move into trying to create business opportunities and support small business in the local community with community members exchanging services like plumbing, drywall, and other things like that. Why don't you tell us a little about that whole history?
Okay, right. All right. Yeah, well, yeah, my mom was very faith-based. She died when I was 6, but anyway, gave a really good foundation. My grandmother also was in the home at that time raising us, so we had kind of that extended family, and my dad also. So I felt I had that very early formative years. You know, I got a really good foundation to understand that, you know, you should love God and serve God, and that was a really important thing to me even at a young age. So I think that set me up for a really, you know, good foundation that, even though I didn't know the principle, was a good foundation for life, you know, as I grew up.
Now that's a very important point, because a lot of your activism, of course, is centered around God's work to be done. And this is the really valued or under-reported thing about activism and trying to do community service and trying to better the betterment of human life is, and many times it is faith-based. It is based on an understanding that we are not here, we are not just amoebas floating around on a deep rock space asteroid called Earth, and there's no purpose to existence. There's no real purpose other than to reproduce and to pass down our gene set. And basically we're biological animals who have no greater mission and or purpose in an infinitely expanding, dying universe that will one day die in a cold death.
Right. Well, right. Absolutely. I mean, exactly. That's the question, you know, and of course, you know, Father always taught us, Reverend Moon, about, you know, that's the ultimate question. You're here to serve God. You are here to love God. You're here to, you know, that's why you're here. So of course that motivates like everything I do. Sure.
Yeah, you know, that's and for activism, because if you're trying to do something that actually is helping people, and then perhaps you have to challenge and go against the political elite, at times mockery, you will get slanders, threats. It requires something that's beyond yourself, that requires something for the greater good, to want to see good people succeed or justice be served, and or to see God's will be done, and the substantiation of, you know, love God, love your neighbor. I mean, one has to be involved in something greater. especially when we receive so much attack if you're trying to do something, especially nowadays with a conservative worldview. If you oppose gay marriage, if you oppose transsexual bathrooms and, you know, hypersexualizing children at 5 years old to learn how to masturbate in school, I mean, this is crazy. If you oppose these things, you are labeled a bigot, a racist, a white supremacist, an anti, you know, Islamicist or a Islamophobe. You name it, everything under the sun to try to bully people from standing up for their rights.
Experience that kind of thing. I mean, with our program, Urban Life Training, we're working in DC public schools.
Yes.
So then, which most of the, you know, parents and students love that, but like one parent complained and then tried to get us kicked out, really because we're preaching abstinence. And also she had circulated an email someone shared with me, although she didn't send it to me, obviously, saying, you know, I was, you know, something had been posted about me being a unificationist and witnessing to some students, and we couldn't have that kind of person in public schools. So, I mean, that's definitely there. It's very like kind of this underhanded thing where we're trying to eliminate you because you're Christian or because you're God-centered. Of course, they won't say that, you know, openly.
But it's okay if you're a radical leftist, you're an Antifa supporter, if you're a Dartmouth professor who's saying we should have political violence on the left and we should vice tweeting out that we should blow up Mount Rushmore. That's all fine and dandy. That's all liberal and trendy. Oh, yes, we should call for the beheading of Trump. That's beautiful. We should call for the killing of Trump supporters. That's fantastic. Kids should have access to that. Kids should learn how to deface public monuments and to blow up, national monuments. And kids should learn how to, deface the president and do mock beheadings of him and draw cartoons of him being beheaded. Yes, that's all wonderful and that's all. But we can't have a Christian. Can't have a Christian.
Yeah, it's kind of super
Islamic prayer. Yeah, Islamic prayer is fine, as Tim said. Islamic prayer, right. You can pray Islamic prayer all day. You can have your 4 wives, have your sex slaves, rape children, do your pedophile, and call it child marriage. That's all fine. But you can't have a Christian that says Jesus Christ and or teaches abstinence as another safe option for kids who are being forced to believe that they only have the option of free sex.
Yeah, very true. I mean, a lot of times, a lot of the youth we worked with, they don't even know people who are married, and they actually, well, that's common in many communities. True. And even like in DC, like 25% of the youth who like attend public schools, they don't grow up with they don't live with either parent. They live maybe with a grandma or some relative. So that's really, they don't see an example of which way to go.
This is really a product of the archangelism. This is a product of centralized power, centralized bureaucracies, people giving their responsibility over to centralized powers who always promise them to do things for them, and that they'll be more convenient. Selling out for convenience, literally selling out your family, your civilization, culture, your life, your existence, our destiny, common destiny as human beings. And in the end, we're standing in this together because the destiny of each human being is the destiny of everybody else's. Everybody's destiny. So collectively, we have to stand against these kind of things and this kind of centralized political Satanism, which seeks to hypersexualize our kids, which seeks to give them gender dysphoria, which seeks to give them all sorts of deviant types of sexuality. So they literally become open to different forms of Satanism. And then at the highest levels, force them to enter into, the super elite classes if they can make it into that through the gauntlet of higher education and Marxist professors and be vetted. Then they're made to enter into the clubs of total demonic, real Satanism, and then could perpetuate the system of political Satanism upon the elite. The protected upper class, protected political class, protected conglomerate class, protected global mafia crime syndicate, which, of course, is ruling this world. Now, does your program, is that connected also to Richard Panzer's program with free teens and abstinence program that Dr. Panzer has been doing?
Yes. Yeah, actually, that's how I got started with the training of Richard Panzer. And so we do use those materials. and they're very excellent relationship intelligence. But we've also, over the years, developed our own materials, and we use some other materials. We have like an element we call peer counseling, where the youth have certain sessions they give about why it's good to abstain, and you know, talk about resisting peer pressure. And we also have faith-based materials. We also include those where, you know, like at our upcoming seminar in November, we're going to have a more like 2-day seminar, Divine Principle, Teachings of Reverend Moon. So that'll be really good.
Okay, now you talk about peer pressure, because young people are slaves to peer pressure. They're bombarded with peer pressure all the time in social engineering. Can you share with us any stories or testimonies of kids who broke through and decided, you know what, I'm going to be abstinent, I'm going to be honorable, I'm going to wait till marriage, just like the Bible says. If I'm going to be a professing Christian, I'm not going to engage in fornication before marriage. You know, and tell us some of the stories that you've encountered over the years training these young people.
Okay. Well, there's one young lady last fall, she invited us to her wedding. Actually, her name's Sharnetta Tyler. So she's now dean of students in the Bronx. But in any case, so she got she was in the club we had at Eastern Senior High School in DC. And then she really took the message to heart, and she went to college, like she went to Georgetown University and other colleges. And then interestingly, she came back to DC to work, and actually saw her at the same school. And we were talking, and, you know, she was telling me about how she was staying abstinent. At that time, she was single, but that she wanted to be married. And then she did keep abstinent. And I was talking to her husband at that time at the wedding, and he said, I was asking her, hey, so, you know, did Sharnetta tell you about abstinence? He said, yeah, and definitely that really changed my life. So that's a really good story to hear. And also, she's actually has her own ministry, or her and her husband, I should say, you know, promoting abstinence, especially like in the Black community. So that's a good thing. That's one story right there. And there's a number of other youth, like they're still single, but I know they're also, you know, keeping that path. So that's encouraging for me to see those youth and young adults now. And I'm in touch with some of them.
Yeah, so many young people are saturated with this culture that literally makes them believe that there's no other choice than free sex culture, homosexual culture, transgender culture, gender dysphoria culture. There's no other choice to that. And that if you don't do that, you're somehow weird, and you're somehow mentally deficient, and or you're mentally ill. And at least for people, they have to be given the choice. Kids should be given the choices for them to make healthy choices. Otherwise, it's not a choice, and you're pushing them into a lifestyle which we know increases divorce rates, increases the next generation's trauma, increases, you know, social instability, increases more dysfunctional families, you name it. But the kids are in this pressure cooker of a cult, very leftist lunatic Republican cult, which make it okay. You have these Republicans who say they're Christian, but they let their kids run around drinking booze parties in bikinis, you know, and pay for their trips to spring break where they know they'll be having sex with 10 boys. What the hell are these stupid so-called conservative Christians getting?
Yeah, well, very true, very true. And like you often say, the culture in college and so on, I mean, it's really very concerning. Even in DC schools, like the statistics are like among females, and it's not that different for males. Like going to 9th grade, 25% of the females had sex. Coming out up to 12th grade, it's 75%. As a parent, that's incredibly concerning. Any parent should be like, whoa, well, that's really bad, you know?
And they show that if you even have one sexual partner before marriage, that then like doubles your odds of divorcing. Just one sexual partner. You know, so they know that, and they want to create instability and destroy the family, because in the end, the family is the unit against the centralization of force, and becomes a counter-authoritative unit, which then raised a different civilization, different people. And so the state has always, even Plato in his Republic, wrote about how the family must be controlled, how families and children must be property of the state. This is an ancient philosophy that, of course, the leftist lunatics and the Rhino Republicans have totally embraced. We'll be right back after this short break. Stay with us on the King's Word. More with Richard Urban on the other side.
here at the range today. I just learned a new technique from the father of the 44 Magnum, Elmer Keith, which is called shooting out of the notch, which allows you to make really long distance shots and still have an extremely precise sight picture. So I brought my CW9 car down, and with this little gun, we're gonna shoot this little munchkin at 200 yards up in the hills, applying this technique, and hopefully we'll make the shot. To apply this technique, instead of using the blade of the front sight lined up with the top of the rear sight, I'm going to take the dot of the front sight and raise it up so that it's out of the notch, but I'm still going to keep the front sight on my target. Bringing that front sight up like that is going to compensate for the bullet drop over that excessively long distance with just this little gun. So if applied right, we should be making contact. Let's see how it goes. I saw this shot, so I'm a little bit out of breath because you gotta run to make sure that is what I thought it was, and it was. So while making this shot, from that distance with these white dot sights, it literally would cover the entire target. You couldn't see what you were shooting. So using the Elmer Keith technique, you were able to raise it out of the back notch, I can't breathe, out of the back notch, allowing you to keep your accuracy, aim, and also still see the target, which is key because it was a hard shot, not gonna lie. But yeah, it went great, and Elmer knows what he's talking about. And for such a small gun to be able to take that hit, I'm very impressed with this. All right, guys, be sure to like and share, and I'll see you out on the range.
That was awesome. Hey, can I try that one? Yeah, let's do it with the 380. Does everybody have eyes and ears?
And we are back. Welcome back to the King's Report this Friday, August 18th, 2017. I'm your host, Hyung Sean Moon, the second king of Cheonryuguk, here with Richard Urban, and discussing all manner of things, but particularly his abstinence training program, which empowers young people to realize there's a choice. You can choose to not be part of the sex culture and the degradation culture and the self-destructive culture, which then sets you up for more failure in the future and degrades your own self of worth and value. Now, Richard, can you share with the audience some of the statistics that come along with, for example, houses that don't have fathers? If you have a lifestyle which then in the future you're more at risk for divorce, which then puts your kids at risk in the future, etc. You name it. It's an ongoing chain and cycle of events which then continue to perpetuate in a negative spiral. Speak to us about that, Richard.
Okay. Well, yes. So studies put out by the National Fatherhood Initiative show that, you know, if a child is raised in a father absent home, for instance, they're a 4-time greater risk of poverty, and they're more likely to have behavioral problems. There's 2 times greater risk of infant mortality.
Wow.
They're more likely to go to prison. they're more likely to commit a crime. They're 7 times more likely to become pregnant as a teen. Wow.
Damn.
More likely to face abuse and neglect, more likely to abuse drugs and alcohol, twice as likely to suffer obesity. Well, I didn't know that. And 2 times more likely to drop out of high school. So those are some of the statistics.
Well, I mean, that is devastating. That's devastating. Literally, that's one of the greatest dangers to a child if they don't have a father. And it's putting the role on fathers to understand their importance, because they're in a culture which dominates them, telling them they're unimportant, they're useless, they're selfish, they're just perverts, and men are useless, women don't need men are irreplaceable. And the statistics simply don't share that. Does not show the fact that men should be self-loathing, self-hating, abhorrent people. But they should understand their value, why God placed them on this earth, and understand why the subject role is so important in leading your family as the head of your household and the priests of the house, to lead them to God, lead them to morality, lead them to ethics, lead them to integrity, also be loving, also be compassionate, but also lead your family against Satan's spiritual warfare, political Satanism, you name it, be the leader of the home. And when you do so, you then take away the 4 times greater risk of poverty. You take away the 7 times more great risk of pregnancy. You name it. Your children are less likely to commit crimes, less likely to be delinquent, less likely to be alcohol, less likely to be drug users, you name it, less likely to divorce. And that is the important role that men function in the family unit as fathers. But the state, as Plato said, the state sees as direct competition healthy, Christian, Christ-based, Christ-like men who are compassionate, loving, know that they're not perfect, and try their best to raise their children with integrity, character, honor, and hard work ethic, just like 2 Thessalonians tells us. But the enemy of the state is the man, because if have women marry the state, just like the archangel had Eve marry him, they can take over civilization. Everybody knows that the archangels are after the women. The archangels, the predators, are after the women, because if they can take the women, they can control the next generation of civilization. So how important is it as a Christ-centered man to be a man, to be a father who is in the home, who loves their children, but also raises them with integrity, confronts them when they have issues and weaknesses and self-delusions, and helps them transcend those things to serve the greater providence and destiny of humanity, the providence of God, and to be honorable people for this world. Okay, go ahead.
Well, yeah, that's it's very true. You know, that's the core issue, that most of the youth places like Washington, D.C. are growing up without their parents, specifically without the father in the home. And like I said, 25% without either parent. Perhaps they're living with grandma or another relative. And that definitely, affects the way they think about things. And it's extremely hard for the youth, even though they want to marriage. Many instances, probably more than half the cases, their parents haven't been married. They don't know married couples. And it's very hard for them to get a grip on, the importance of marriage, although a little easier to understand why they should be sexually abstinent. But to understand marriage, it's difficult. It really just affects.
Yeah, I mean, even when we moved to Pennsylvania, which is northeast Pennsylvania, more rural area, I mean, even our kids who went to public school for a couple of years, they saw all their friends, every single one of the friends basically had divorced parents, almost every single one. This is the rural town. It's supposed to be a Christian-based town. Everybody had divorced parents. And this is what the kids had to deal with. There was one parent who the mom came to the birthday party and announced at the birthday party that she'll be divorcing her daddy tomorrow. These people are crazy. They're selfish, totally narcissistic, destructive culture, which is now pervasive. Even in rural areas like this, probably more so, because these rural areas, they want to break down the Christian fabric. They want to break down Christian morality. They want to break down, Christian forbearance and patience for one another, to love and respect one another, and to stick with each other, even though times are tough and you don't feel like you love, you continue commanded by Jesus to love. And you'll get through those feelings of, oh, I don't feel like I'm being loved now. I don't feel like I don't feel it anymore. You'll get beyond that as you practice serving God and loving your spouse.
Amen.
You know,
yeah, definitely.
But like even out here, you know, our kids, they saw, and of course, this is what also it's important for parents. It's important for parents who are married to remind their kids, you are blessed for having a dad and a mom. You're blessed. I mean, parents think that that's somehow arrogant or self-boasting. They don't realize that children have to be reminded that they should be grateful that they have a dad and a mom, that reduces their poverty by 4 times, that reduces their unwanted childhood pregnancy by 7 times, that reduces potential future crime rates, future drug rates. But parents don't do this because they think they're boasting in themselves. They don't tell their kids, because kids have to be reminded, just like everybody has to be reminded, about why God has surrounded you with gifts. And sometimes you take your parents for granted. You take the fact that your dad and mom weren't divorced for granted, right? And it's important to remind children when they're growing up that, hey, you guys are blessed. God blessed you with an honorable father and honorable mother who wants to serve God, who doesn't think they're perfect, but is trying their best to serve God and to serve the community and live out you know, godly principles and godly kingdom mentality in their life.
Yeah, I mean, amen. They're absolutely right. It's such a protective factor. So, I mean, if you think about child well-being, it's mind-boggling that, you know, the schools or public schools don't promote this, and in fact, encourage the opposite through the kind of, you know, sex education they do. They're doing just the opposite. So it's really bad.
I mean, not only sex education. Lou Kazakov was on the show on Tuesday, I believe, and he was exposing the fact of these the Cash for Kids that were happening in Pennsylvania, all across the country, where judges are basically using CPS as a mafia arm to legally kidnap children. And he brought up a senator from Arkansas who was killed after she exposed the fact that the CPS, or Child Protective Services, was fulfilling quotas. They had to fulfill quotas, and anything above quotas, they would receive bonuses, $4,000 to $6,000 per child that they legally kidnap from their families. There was an incentive to legally kidnap children, $4,000 to $6,000 per head. So if you kidnapped 10 children from their families above your quota, you get a $60,000 bonus.
Wow, that's crazy. That's criminal.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And this senator from Arkansas was exposing this fact that there's no oversight, there's no transparency, there's no auditing of the CPS, and they're able to legally kidnap children, break up families. She's not denying that there's some abuse in these homes, but the majority that she's looking at were literally where they're trying to fulfill quotas and get bonuses. The CPS agents were trying to get bonuses to $6,000, free cash from the federal bureaucracy under Clinton to steal and legally kidnap children and break up families.
Wow.
Can you believe that?
Yeah, that's unbelievable. Yeah, it's bad. It's bad. I mean, I've had some dealings, you know, you mentioned our son is adopted.
Georgia Senator. Yes.
Georgia.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Richard.
Oh, I was saying, I've had some dealings with the foster care system in DC. Before we, you know, adopted our son, we were looking into adopting through foster care. We went through training, and like, well, I could write a book about that. But yeah, I could say there's a lot of things. Actually, adoption is a very low priority in the foster care system, at least in DC. Other place maybe too. It's like number 7. But there's so much. You know, they promote the homosexual agenda. The lady told me, one of the directors, "Hey, you're teaching abstinence. That might be harmful to a child." Almost like fell off the chair. But the whole thing is so not for the well-being of children.
I mean, this is the great hypocrisy of the leftist lunatics. Always moral posturing, pretending they care for children. Meanwhile, they're giving the most destructive. It's like, okay, children, here, we're going to let you swim in the swamp with alligators. Just don't get bit. We're going to give you all this dangerous information at a young age. We're going to teach you how to masturbate and have sex at 5 years old. But just don't get pregnant. Use contraceptives. Or if you do get pregnant, just kill the baby with abortion and Planned Parenthood. And make sure you sign up right now to get your free ticket and free coupon. I mean, this is like a business. It's a total business.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. In DC.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah. In DC, 12-year-olds can get abortions without legally can get abortions. 12 and up.
Jesus.
And in the schools, they make the 9th graders pee in a cup, and then, well, you don't have to. They give you a bag, you go in the stall, and if they find out you like have AIDS, they're not required to tell your parents. That's crazy.
Oh my gosh! I mean, this is what they want to accelerate and put on steroids under Hillary Rodham Clinton, to get this type of insanity and this kind of societal breakdown and chaos and dysphoria into the general public, make it mainstream, make us all mentally ill so we can't function. And of course, so we can't stand up against the political elite. I mean, this is just so unbelievable. If you're in such a destabilized personal, I mean, look at families, look at people who are even in careers and professionals. Some of the most things that cause them the most instability is actually their family life, is actually their marriage life, is actually their personal relationships, right? And if they can shake that up from an early age, if the state can shake that up, like Beto said they should, if they can shake that up and create discombobulation there, you'll create a whole army of population people who can never stand up against you, and be able to place them in these little internet ghettos or little mind game ghettos where they think their identity is wrapped around those kind of things, and they can't transcend those tribalistic identities to then transcend and see their rulers as the evil ones that they are, stand up against them and to throw them off, throw the shackles off of them to be free to run towards God. But they never can do that if they're locked in their little plantation fields, locked into little control, locked into debt slavery, locked into mortgage slavery, locked into student debt slavery, locked into divorced homes and dysfunctional family and hypersexualization and constant charade of celebrity cults and mainstream media hammering into them that they're always victims, and then they don't have any control of their life, or they don't have any self-determination, or they should not try an entrepreneur, but they should take welfare checks and be completely dependent on the state and worship it as their granddaddy who gives them little crumbs that fall upon them, and be grateful for the political class and the politicians that are raping them, taking 76% of all federal funds to themselves and their friends and bureaucrats, meanwhile only giving 26%, 24% to the poor. These are the real statistics. This is how inefficient these fools are. And they want more and more and more of the normal person's money.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Richard. Chime in on that. And Washington, D.C., you live right near it.
Washington, D.C. Right. Well, I mean, definitely the state systems aren't, helping, like I mentioned, like in the public schools, the kind of education, that's provided. And so it doesn't like empower a lot of people.
Free education, they say, don't they? Free education.
Free education.
It's
right.
Not, is it, do you think it's education?
Not very good education. I mean, then they encourage the youth like to go to college and stuff, but a lot of times, I mean, then like you said, they get into debt, and maybe it's questionable, what kind of education they're getting. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of issues there. I mean, like you said, the core thing is a family structure and, stabilizing that. And then a lot of things are working against that. And even like you said, the child welfare system, how did it become so prevalent in the last like 40 years? It wasn't even basically hardly existing 40 years ago.
Well, you mentioned that shocking statistic that in DC, a 12-year-old can get an abortion. What? Without permission of the parents. What kind of message is that sending to young, brain-dead kids?
I mention that sometimes to parents and they don't believe it. So they don't know about that. I mean, it's probably hopefully a rare thing, but I mean, it is true. I know of students, I mean, not like every detail, but I know some of the students I've been aware of, other students mentioned, you know, who got an abortion as a teen, their parents didn't know. So, I mean, it's definitely happening. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. What are they thinking?
Such insanity, folks. We'll be right back after this short break. Stay with us on the King's Report. Oh my gosh, that gives me such a headache.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
And we are back. I'm your host, Hyung Ji Moon, the second king of Cheongguk, here with Richard Urban. Richard, if you could tell us about your business, Urban Grocery, and also some other Urban Life Foundation, etc. Why don't you tell us why you're in the Urban Grocery business, what kind of business that is, and how you've helped other people start their own businesses and serve their society and community as well. Go ahead, Richard.
Okay. Well, originally I was one of the original people working with a business called Happy Mind Shop at Home Club or Service that True Father Reverend Sun Myung Moon founded in Washington, D.C. And he said this would be, you know, well, actually, I was told it would be, someone said it'd be the greatest accomplishment in America. So that closed down, but we decided to start our own grocery delivery business. It's called Urban Grocery, urbangrocery.com and .net. And we've formed or have software that's all online now where you can run your own grocery delivery business. And that'll help you to do community service, or as we call it, home church. And it'll also earn money for your family. So that's a really good thing. And that's why, you know, Reverend Moon founded such a business. And it was very, very important to him. So we're still carrying that out. And you can actually purchase our system and, you know, run a business in your city for delivering groceries and serving people. And people are doing successfully. You can check our website there, you know. So you would purchase our software, and then it allows you to set up a shopping cart. We have a database of like 75,000 items, so we can localize it for your area. So the way you make money in the business is some stores, like even Wegmans, is like 13% less than, say, you know, Safeway or whatever your local store is. So you can mark things up, but still have, you know, a reasonable price. And then people who would like that service, you can, you know, use the software to take orders and serve people. And you can also add other products too, like if you want to,
So
like
you take orders and then you go out to the grocery store and buy some bags of groceries to the customer.
Right.
Is that right?
People would do that, or if they had someone helping them, or if they're mom and pop business, they would do it themselves. Like we were doing that many years in DC, and now we still do it out here in Harpers Ferry to a limited extent. And then other people can use our system and are using it, like a guy's doing very well with it in Pittsburgh, for instance, in Pennsylvania.
Interesting. And then also, you were talking about how you make your urban life training, abstinence training available for everybody for access.
Right. So we have a web portal. You can go to urbanlifetraining.org, and you can sign up for that, and through that, we have all the materials online. So you can teach the abstinence materials, and also we have the God-centered divine principle materials and the pure counseling materials all there. So our idea is to make everyone be able to be a teacher, go to their school, go to their church, or share it, of course, in your family. And that's available. We ask people to give a relatively small donation to access it. So then they can access that online and have all those materials. And then periodically, like right now, 3 times a year, we have seminars. We'll have one coming up on the 24th, 5th, and 6th of November, where here in Harpers Ferry, people will get training. So then they can then subsequently, log in and teach those materials themselves.
And now that really is on the front line of the battle between good sex versus bad sex, Satan sex versus God sex in the home of marriage, preparing young people to prepare for that, because that has to be an option on the table, especially in a world that we're saturated with Satanism, political Satanism all around. Young people need to know that there's still a safe haven where they can go and pursue the natural the desires of their heart, which is to be with somebody who's faithful to them, which is to be married to somebody which will love them and cherish them and honor them. And of course, they too are responsible in that marriage as well. They can't expect somebody to be their slave and worship them like the feminists want men to be, but they have to create God-centered marriages that in the end create love and respect and create humility in a man and a woman, and for them to transcend their sexes and to be children of God, be joy givers to God, and allow them to create the most powerful place for young generations to flourish and to thrive from. Richard, we thank you for joining us this morning on the King's Report. Thank you for all your updates. Good to see you with your crown. For those under Christ's authority are given crowns of glory, and we are grateful to see that Richard is standing as a sovereign King Richard Urban, joining us today on the King's Report. Thanks so much, Richard, for joining us. Thank you all for joining us this day, Friday, August 18th, 2017. It is rainy out there, so stay protected from the elements, but give always glory and unending praise to God our Father, who art in heaven. Hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen and adieu. We'll see you tomorrow, 5 a.m. sharp with Tim, the Agent Elder. God bless, Godspeed, and may his kingdom come. All right.
As the people turn to pray.